and we're here today with our content manager, content
Manager. Yeah.
content manager, Alan. I feel like I should probably know that. Content expert, Alan, to talk about AI influences, and I don't know if it's going to be positive. I don't know if there's a lot of
It's
good things to say about them. After
it's
diving in this week,
100% not going to be positive.
no, I feel absolutely pessimistic about the world in general after diving into, I mean, even just influences kind of just make me a bit sad.
Right. Well, this was interesting because I know we've had conversations about social media before, and I know that you're not like a big social media guy.
No.
So I didn't expect you to feel positive about the AI influencers, but I know that you are a big AI guy. So I was thinking, like, I didn't know what your actual take on it was going to be because, on one hand, you love getting us to like try new formats and experiment with different things. This is like a massive, massive example of this in the social media world. And I think it's horrible. I think a lot of it is horrible, but it is interesting in terms of, does it kill creativity or does it foster creativity? Because essentially, why did influencer marketing is like a relatively new concept in the history of marketing because social media is relatively new. I get the sense that people liked influencer marketing so much because it was more authentic than your traditional advertising. You know, people wanted like the actual real human perspective on things, real recommendations based on what like products real people have used, and I like this person so I want to know what product they're using. That's all very like, its conception came like in theory, depending on whether we trust marketers or not,
Yeah,
happened because people want authenticity, and influencer marketing is a lot more authentic on the surface than three guys in a boardroom coming up with a big advertising campaign.
true.
So to move towards AI influencers, which is happening, like we've got examples of it, we see it happening. It's not fully mainstream yet, but it will be, I'm sure, as with everything else, is moving so far away from the authenticity because essentially there's no, that's not a real human. And you've got brands being in the position where they can create an influencer to suit their brand needs. They
Yeah,
don't have to like somebody that aligns with their values, somebody that's going to say the things they want to say. It takes all of the uncertainty out of it because you just create an AI to do it for you, and then there's no difference to sitting in that boardroom. It's the same thing. It's just advertising. It's not influencer marketing at all.
interesting. Isn't the whole authenticity argument that people won't want to engage with it anymore because it's inauthentic? And then does that swing the pendulum of people won't engage with the AI thing anymore? Or is it pulling all these like social, psychological mechanisms of like, this is something I want to look at and this is engaging? And is it pulling all those like social engineering levers to get to suck people in that tech's done a good job of refining over the years?
I mean, yeah, potentially, but it depends what kind of audience you're going for because it might do that to somebody who's super interested in it, but it certainly won't do that to, when I think of like people who don't work in tech or people I've had conversations with just randomly, even like members of my family wouldn't have a clue what, and they're intelligent people, you know, they're just not involved in this world. They're not, I know my mum wouldn't look at an Instagram page of an AI and immediately recognize that as an AI because often they might have a kind of, they might allude to it in some way, but it's not super obvious, especially for somebody at a glance who is not already kind of familiar with the concept. So it might, then they're not deceiving anyone because a lot of these AIs aren't lying about what they are and what they're doing. But I suppose they kind of are inadvertently deceiving people because they're not making it so in your face obvious that anybody would be able to pick it up just by looking.
That's interesting because I wonder how much AI content I see and don't realize is AI content quite often because
Yeah.
I often see things and I go, oh, that could be AI. Do you want to walk us through what AI influences are and what's been happening? And
Yeah. So you've got a few different examples of the type of AI influencer people can work with. So this is Lil Michaela. She has recently been in a BMW advert. There's brand deals on here. Um, the
she's hanging
company
out
is,
with 50 Cent. That's so they can augment them and put celebrities in them.
yeah.
Ooh. All
And
right.
so that, I mean, you can see on these photos, there are some of them that look like AI, and there are some, like the kind of further away ones, that you certainly wouldn't look at it and think, oh, this is an AI influencer. This person doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's weird that they've said she's 19 years old.
Yeah.
What's that
That,
about?
well, weirder still. So from Clueless AI, this other company that does it. They have an AI influencer, Itana, I think, Itana Lopez, and she is a kind of fitness blogger, and they've given this bio, and they talk about her personality as if she is a real human. It's like, oh, she challenges, she loves this, she loves this, and it's the creepiest thing in the world to read. And again, I think these photos specifically of Aitana, certainly at a glance, you wouldn't think twice. It just looks like a heavily edited photo.
Yeah, it looks like a person.
Yeah.
Uh, that is wild. Um,
And so she wears I don't know how much per post is made. She doesn't tag brands. It's not as authentic as her putting in the caption like, oh, ad working with Nike on this fitness range of fitness wear or whatever. But there are brands visible in the photos. So
yeah. Like, here we go.
yeah, like that you see the Nike take. I don't know what the rules are around it. I don't know what the ethical implications are. I don't. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
I'm fascinated. I'm just going to derail us for a second. I'm fascinated by the language around it. Like virtual soul is interesting. Powered by AI. I'm curious what that means. Does that mean they're generating the images, but someone's curating the text, or like this is creepy, and I don't know why. It makes me uneasy.
So her
So this is what you're
description,
talking about. As a
yeah,
content creator, she shines with extroversion, attracting attention with her striking character. As a passionate, oh, she's a Scorpio.
she's a Scorpio.
She highlights her love of video games and her dedication to the fitness lifestyle.
Yeah.
But just,
So
but
here as well, like there's so many in terms of the body positivity movement. There's so much to unpack here because she has an amazing like fitness model look about her. You can see that, but that body is not real. So it's like there's a
no,
whole joke like yet another unrealistic standard, but this is literally the most unrealistic standard because this woman doesn't exist.
does she give advice on fitness? Because that would be even wilder.
I haven't seen any posts that are actually giving advice, but I have seen posts with the caption like, "Oh, no makeup, all natural today," and it's crazy.
One of the questions I had while I was looking through the stuff you sent me was, I think it's interesting that all of the big examples and all of the ones that have got media are all young women. What
Yeah,
do you think that's about?
I don't know if that what I think that is about is appropriate to say on the podcast.
Oh, go on. We can get to
I
that.
just think it's very much geared towards young men, young straight men, basically.
Mhm.
There's a sexual element to it, like the way she was posed, the clothes that she was wearing in the photos. There is a certain type of theme that we see repeatedly with these AI influencers.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really stood out to me was there are a lot of like the ones that are winning are young women. Uh, as much as it's geared towards young men, also I think the biggest influences are probably young women. Like the biggest real
Oh,
life,
the biggest real human influencers.
yeah, are also probably women. Well, when I think of influencers, I think of
I think probably that was it. Like that was kind of the first iteration of influencer marketing, wasn't it? Like the kind of Zoellas of the world. That's what you think of when you think of like stereotypical influencer marketing. It's like lifestyle, fashion, young women.
yeah. But on the other side of this, like it is just interesting how much I dug out some stats on that Lopez AI, and she's earning up to 11,000 a month and getting $1,000 per post to advertise stuff.
And
That's,
so that money's going to the company.
hmm
Yeah. And that what I can't understand from this company in particular obviously is what we're talking about here, but it's all companies who do this and there are a few different ones. Why? it's not clear on their website what the purpose is. They often put a lot of kind of flowery language, and it comes across as kind of a cross between an art movement. One of them said that they were like challenging it. If we scroll down slightly, so
Challenging what?
just yeah, just challenging everything with challenging reality. Um, yeah, they've said at the Clueless, we are not just an AI modelling agency. We're visionaries on a mission to redefine the world of influencers. Our goal is to transcend the conversational realm of modelling and lead the way in influencing, ushering in a new era characterised by authenticity, impact, and deep meaning. And arguably, a new era of authenticity. I mean, it's not a new era of authenticity because that would be the humans. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
if
this
we're
is
gonna.
authenticity. That's insane. It's kind of using, I don't know what to call it, but like empowerment language.
Yeah,
Like, this is a movement, we're championing something, but I don't know if people want to get behind that.
yeah, exactly. I would have a lot more time for this if if the companies behind it were kind of just saying, "Oh, we're just pushing the boundaries. We're experimenting with tech. It's arty. It's interesting." Do you know what I mean? I would get it more. I'd be like, "Yeah, it is interesting."
The cynic in me says they're doing this for money, and I can't remember if it was Clueless or another company who runs one of these AIs. They were forecasting they'll earn about $1 million from advertising deals off the AI this year.
But this is what I struggle with as well because I don't understand who is paying that and why. Because a lot of the argument with AI solutions in general is cost saving, efficiency, doing more with not as many people, not as many pay slips. You're still paying these companies. It's not like you're just creating your own in-house AI and wheeling that out whenever you want. Like if you are paying an AI model to promote something, why not pay a human model? I genuinely don't understand that.
I think what they're getting into, I mean, I think some of it is cost saving. Like if you look here, I don't know how much a normal influencer gets paid, but $1,000 a post doesn't seem crazy to me to tap into someone with a quarter of a million influence
Yeah, it's
platform.
not.
So my guess would be that it's cheaper, and what people are paying for isn't necessarily the influencer. They're paying for access to the audience, to a large audience. Um,
Yeah.
and that's where it's coming in. So if you can pay less to access an engaged audience, what I'd be curious about is which advertisers are using this, because my guess is it's not young women that are going, "Hey, she's wearing those cool clothes. I want them too." And as we talked about, it's probably young males or males in general watching this. So watching what they're advertising is really interesting to me, and who's actually using the platform.
That's interesting in terms of how much success anyone will actually have with this because if when I used to work in influencer marketing, if it was really clear the campaigns that weren't as authentic or didn't kind of reach the right audience because they didn't do as well, and you saw that in the results. So that I just can't imagine anyone having any real long-term success working unless they are just trying to reach that kind of specific demographic. Fair enough. But for any other way, if it's clothing, if it's aimed at females who look like this AI or anything like that, it's not actually gonna resonate.
Yeah, that's how. I mean, I'm thinking like you as a woman, Ellen. Would you subscribe to this? Would you look at her stuff and go, "Oh wow, this is someone I want to follow"? Aside
Like,
from, I
what are
mean,
you
you're
wearing?
yeah, exactly. Are you like, "Oh, this is an inspirational person I want to be like"? Because that's the core of a lot of influencing stuff, right? It's,
Yeah.
hey, this person does something or has something I don't. They're glamorous. They're beautiful. Um, how do I be more like that, or how do I emulate that? I don't see people looking at AI, especially if they know it's not a real person, and going, "I want to be like that."
Yeah, no, I don't at all. I mean, maybe that's our perspective, though. Maybe we're blinkered because we have a quite a solid understanding of AI. Maybe it would be very different if, somebody's 11-year-old sister or whatever was looking at it. We don't know what the younger generation's understanding of this kind of thing is
Well,
because
going back to
we,
this first one, what fascinated me, because I hadn't looked at this one, is that it's all like her living a lifestyle. It's like
yeah,
I'm out there getting my nails done and I'm meeting 50 Cent and who
it's
knows where.
crazy, crazy week for.
Which is just, I mean, I don't know what the hell that is. It's just weird. Like, it kind of feels like it's trying to trick people.
Yeah,
But arguably, has influencing always been people kind of trying to trick people into like having a great life and hey, look at how popular and happy I am. And I'm sure everyone's seen the memes of like the influencer being like, yeah, I'm having the best time, look at me on my phone. And then it flips around and it's just boring and
yeah,
they're sad and they're texting. Um, that's always been the case. So the authenticity thing has this weird like two-sided argument to me where influencers weren't really authentic to begin with. So
yeah. That's like, I agree to a certain extent. I like influencer marketing more than you like influencer marketing. But I think it's only valuable when it is done well and when it is done as authentically as possible. And I know that there is a limit to how much you can say, oh, this is authentic, because we've got no idea what's happening behind the camera, and
mm,
that's fair. But I think there's a lot of I think we've kind of gone through a circle with influencer marketing, and it kind of took off and it was very authentic at first because nobody had worked out quite how to exploit it yet. And then, as with any other type of marketing or any other type of popular thing, you kind of cotton on to things and you get people exploiting it, you get less authenticity. And then, because everyone is now so aware of that, I do think it kind of comes full circle and people are kind of, you get a lot of influencers trying to show you the real life side of things when they've been really miserable, when they've whatever. And I do think that that is a good thing. But I do worry now that if, as this kind of AI influencer gains traction, what is going to happen to the industry? Because will you just get people losing faith altogether? Will it just become obsolete because you can't influence anybody if nobody trusts the entire industry?
that's exactly where someone keeps referring to it as the post-truth era. But basically, what happens when you just can't believe anything on the internet anymore?
Yeah.
Um, or anything digital? Like, does everyone just become incredibly cynical? And that sounds like a shit world. I don't want to live in that a world where everyone's just like, not real, boring. Next. I don't believe that.
I worry that I'm a bit like that now. Like, I think that's my there are not many things that I would just trust at face value.
Yeah, I feel the same. I wonder if that's just age. Um, Sometimes, but yeah, there's definitely like this. Well, I think there's this trend of people being less impressed and less excited about things, and a deep wave of cynicism and influencer marketing is definitely part of it. But I think just in general on the internet, people are like way more cynical, and it's hard to do something that people are like, wow, that's awesome, that's interesting, that's cool.
Yeah.
Much harder to do. Uh, and I just kind of worry that we're going down into a everything sucks kind of world.
There is an argument that this like the influencer industry is kind of heading towards this without even worrying about AI. Like, AI
Mm.
is the least of our problems, or certainly these AI influencers that aren't actually real are the least of our problems, because I mean, generative AI Photoshop is so easy to use. Like, it is so easy to use. Even just, I've seen so many TikToks of people joking, and like, there are a lot of jokes about kind of tricking your partner or your friends that you're somewhere else, and it's so easy for an amateur to just completely deceive.
Yeah,
So are these AI influencers where the companies are actually quite open? I know we said it's not easy at a glance, but if you look, they do disclose that they're not real. Is that any worse than just what everybody else does with editing, with being inauthentic on a daily basis?
True. I don't. Yes, it is because it's still real.
It's creepier for one. It's weird.
I was I was fascinated by this one, which was a fashion project that you sent over. Are these all AI models?
Yes.
This is insane because I couldn't. There's no way I could tell.
Yeah, no,
These
absolutely
are
not.
real. Like that looks like a real person to me.
So it's the same company, it's the Clueless, and I mean, like it's like stunning images. It's high quality. You wouldn't be able to. This is one of those instances where you certainly wouldn't be able to see at a glance. I don't
I
know if
don't.
you would be
I
able to
like
see
the
at all.
look.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this just looks real to me. Me and my bad eyesight. This looks like a real person.
So,
Which
do
is
you like, in your own opinion, genuinely, do you think this is any less or more creative than somebody who goes and like creative directs a photo shoot with live models and a live set and everything?
I don't think it's any less creative. Uh, to be honest, no. It's there's still someone there using their taste, saying this is good, this is what I think's good, this is, and I think that's I've talked about this before, but that's where sort of this AI stuff's going. Is we still need people to be the filter and tell us what's good, and decide what's good and what's worth putting out into the world. And someone's obviously done that. Like it's not just an AI that spat out 20 images and said these are the best ones that are most optimized for attention. Here you go. Someone's quite clearly sat there and said these are the ones that will pass and these are the ones that look excellent. Um, so I often wonder how much is lost in the process of just generating. So I think you'd get different results if someone was there on set in this space. And like think of Matt, our head of video. I think he would get a lot more if he was on the set going around and maybe he looks at this and goes, hey, there's another angle here we could get, there's another shot here that would look really cool, maybe stand in the door frame. Um, and I wonder if there's something lost in the creative process there of just experimenting. I think perhaps that's what AI takes away. But in saying that, if you have an imagination and you just go move the model to the door, uh, yes, I don't know. It's a hard one for me because if you have a big imagination, I think you can do a lot with this. If you're limited or you think in terms of like space or experimentation, you're probably harmed a little bit by this.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's more or less creative. I think it probably skews towards people that stay inside more and probably the more introverted.
I agree. I don't think it's necessarily any more or less creative. I think maybe sometimes it is in depending on what you're working on or whatever. But I think if they were just doing it as an expression of creativity or as a to like as a kind of tech experiment, just to see what they can create with AI, fine. I'm interested in that. I will look through it. I will like say, yeah, that's beautiful. But the fact that those models are then available for hire is what freaks me out.
I mean, there's an argument that this is devil's advocate, and I don't really believe it, but there's an argument that says, hey, we're using not real models. Now we don't have to worry about things like the health or working them too many hours or
I mean, that's your whole like workers being replaced by AI, right? Like that happens in every industry. That's a conversation in every industry.
I think our whole discussion so far has been around look, here's an AI that is doing the modeling stuff. Another aspect of this is like augmentation. Um, like you're a celebrity, you're a Taylor Swift or a Kim Kardashian, and now you can create 100 fake images of yourself and send those out. And what happens when they're just working at scale? So it's a real person, but they're just creating a lot of fake images of themselves. And passing them as authentic or real. That's a really interesting dynamic as well. And I think we've got a stat in here somewhere that says like Influencer Marketing Factory surveyed 660 US based creators and found that 94% of them are already using AI to edit content and generate images. So it's already happening. But I'm curious what like the end point is of it and where people's morals sit.
That kind of ties into the whole conversation around regulating AI. And it's specifically just talking in a social media context, like forgetting all of the other stuff, like the government, the public sector having to regulate AI. Nobody can keep up, but specifically not social media because we're very bad at regulating social media anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because it moves too quickly. There's too many parts of it, and everyone can do anything they want, and regulations just quite literally can't keep up, and that's terrifying.
Yep, which comes, I mean, in my head, that means people have to figure out how to self-regulate. And
Yeah, but we don't trust people to do that.
oh, not at all. Like, I don't know how to do that. Um, yeah, which is incredibly difficult when you don't know. When going back to what you were talking about earlier, like, I think about my parents in this situation as well. Like, there's no way they can tell the difference between AI content and non-AI content. They can't
Yeah.
tell if the website's a scam website. Um, so, like, they have no chance. Um,
But we're getting to a point where like nobody has a chance. Like it's getting so kind of advanced. It's not even just the people who like aren't super tech savvy. It's people who, use tech every day, understand AI and would still have to sit and scrutinize something and say, is that a real person? Oh yeah, they've described themselves as a virtual soul. So it's AI. Like
virtual soul, real person. Can you talk me through Margie the Hunt? I've been briefly exposed to it from Andrew, our head of content and media.
yeah.
What
Yeah.
was it?
Okay, Margie the Hun is an Instagram account. I think it originated on TikTok, and I think she has a much larger following on TikTok. It started off just as kind of she would do daily or weekly vlogs, I'm not sure, or photo carousels, sorry, and you would swipe through, and it would just be Margie going about her day. Obviously, the likeness is Marge Simpson, but the personality of this specific character is not Marge Simpson as we know her. It is Margie the Hun, and she does things that are typically associated with UK Hun culture. So there's a lot of Uggs, like getting your nails done. Andrew's going to murder me for this description. Andrew could describe it a lot better than I can. But she has a storyline. We meet her friends, we meet her parents, and this I don't mind as much. I mean, there's a copyright conversation to be had here. I don't know what the implications are there, but I suppose she's not big enough to attract any massive attention yet. A lot of it is funny.
On the copyright side, if I don't actually know the laws in the UK, but I imagine there's somewhat to New Zealand, which is this probably classifies as parody, um, which means yeah.
I mean, yeah, that would make sense. However, so this whoever is running this account, and there is absolutely no deception here. Obviously, it's a character. Um, it's very much tongue in cheek. It's very much parody. I don't think anybody is being misled by this. But the creator has a kind of subscription service now. I don't know if it's
Ah,
whatever, but you can subscribe to a newsletter. It costs money. Margie's Hun Club. And so, there's profit being made on this. And I actually, this one personally, I think is super, super creative because the humor and the kind of parody is just so spot on. It is really funny. And whoever is doing it, I don't know whether they're using AI to write the copy or if they're kind of going off their own sense of humor, but it's really, really good. So there is a lot of creativity on display here.
interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting that you can just build a character that gets a lot of traction on the internet, and this is probably a good example. I don't even know. Do you know if any of it's AI generated?
I don't know.
I guess the images are, but I
I
don't.
would guess the images are.
Um,
I don't know if AI. as in terms of content generator, I don't know if it would be able to get the nuances of UK Hun culture in the way that Margie the Hun does. I want to believe that this is a person scripting it.
Yeah, my guess would be this is like the meme format, and they're generating images and then putting their own text
Yeah.
over it. Um, if there's an AI doing this, I'm impressed. Uh, but this is a really good example of how you can creatively use AI, or
Yeah.
how people are using it in creative ways to create new fun things.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Because I
which
mean, this is content. Like this is you. I'm not. You can use this in loads of different ways. You could use this kind of thing for a brand, and it would be wild and it would be weird. But you could do it. It's not. It doesn't give me that uneasy feeling that the other guys do.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it gives me a little bit of an uneasy feeling. It's kind of why she got Garfield on. Yeah, it's weird, but I think you get the joke.
Yeah,
Um,
you get the joke, and there's a story to it. It's like I understand it's storytelling.
yeah, I mean, it's very clearly there's a joke to be had, whereas I think your unease with the AI, the other ones, is that there's no joke. They're
Yeah,
just
I'm not in on the joke.
deceive you. There's like it's just deception. Ugh. Um, I think we've covered this.
Yeah.
Uh, into the business, because the business side of it we've touched on, but is quite creepy. I don't know who's put a report together that says $125 billion market according to the report from from Gartner. 125 billion is insane. On that 100 billion, I think a lot of the stuff in here about how they're engaging people at a high level kind of surprised me and freaked me out. Like they were talking about this one where it found it reached 11 times more people across social platforms compared to traditional ads, which is it just freaks me out. Like, so people are more engaged with this kind of content than they are normal content. So it
I would
works.
like to understand that more though, because as you say, is that just people who are kind of grossly fascinated in it? Because I would stop and look at this if I knew it was an AI influencer, and I would probably click through, but that's born out of an interest in AI and the industry and what it's doing to it. It's not born out of, oh, I'm gonna buy her top.
Regardless, I think 11 times more people looking at it is a significant increase. And if it is just, it's creating more interesting images that people get sucked into, it kind of freaks me out. I don't know if we've got jobs anymore, Alan.
No, I don't. It's fine. We'll adapt. We'll just sit at home and chat to AI, like an AI therapist about how we lost our jobs too.
Well, there's this whole thing called, I think it's called hypernormal stimuli. That's a book, which is basically about how like things get ramped up, and we're constantly wanting to have more stimulus in our life. I don't know if that's hypernormal, supernormal stimulus, and how we constantly want more stimulating and more stimulating things. I mean, I think the study, I could be misquoting it a little bit, but was basically once you ramp up that stimulus, it's
You
hard to
can't
come back down
go
from it.
back.
It's basically you can't come back from it, and it kind of messes you up, or it's a hard road to come back from it. And I wonder if all this AI stuff is creating stimulus on that level where people are getting ramped up and ramped up. I mean, I think social media has done it to an extent already, but are we looking for another level of that where AI is learning how, like, what levers to pull to get people engaged, and it's constantly learning, and we're going to have these things that are just super stimulating. I mean, you see it in TikTok. You see those videos that are like a game being played up the top and someone talking about something at the bottom.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Oh my
who
God,
the
yeah.
hell is watching this? Like, what's wrong with your brain? Uh, so it's already happening, and I just wonder if this is the next stage of it, where we're just optimizing for the most stimulating thing possible, and these influencers are going to keep going.
But I would also be interested to see, because you've got a whole kind of wellness boom going on as well, where people are trying to limit their screen time, people are trying to be more mindful about what they consume content wise. So I would like to see how that plays into it as well, because I do think that unless I'm just in a huge echo chamber, which I will be, but unless it's bigger than I thought, I
No,
know a lot of people trying to kind of reverse that, at least to a certain extent.
yeah, the wellness thing is a really interesting wrinkle in all of this that I think people have identified. It's not good for you. It's
Yeah.
not good for you to be constantly mind split. Like, I don't think I've talked about it on here. I might have talked to you about this before as well. I had to get rid of my AirPods because I just found myself listening. Like, I'd just have them in all day and I'd be like, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to music. And you can't write like that. There's no way you can do any writing or any good thought like that. And I did this for like weeks and was just like, this isn't healthy for me. Uh, and I just had to get rid of them. I had to be like,
All together.
yeah, I just don't have AirPods anymore because they're too convenient. And like, I can't have them. I can't have them in my life.
You can't be
Otherwise, I don't
trusted.
get things done. Uh, so yeah, in terms of like, there's just too much stimulus. The wellness side of things is definitely creeping up from what I see as well,
Yeah.
becoming a bigger part of the conversation.
I think ultimately the kind of your typical marketer does not need to pay attention to this concept at all. I don't think people like it for the most part. I know I'm going to disagree with the stats there. I think people are interested in it, but I don't think this is something that marketers need to worry about in the next couple of years.
Well, you say that, but the other study I found on here was they asked 357 participants in this questionnaire um, about how much they trusted AI, and overwhelmingly it indicated that customers are attracted to virtual influencers and perceive them as more trustworthy, credible, and relevant to customers'
That
preferences.
cannot be true. I need to sit down with every one of those people and ask them like what they're thinking when they answer that.
Well,
Who were these people? Who were who did they survey? I'm
I,
gonna unpick it.
yeah, you deep dive into this because I'd love to hear what you think
We'll
about it.
do a follow up when I've debunked the stats.
But I mean, just on face value, these stats kind of freak me out a little bit. I like, did they go in blind? Did they not understand one was AI? Were they just like, here are two influencers,
Which
pick
one do
one,
you
which
trust
one do
more?
you trust more? Uh, but again, that gets back to the whole transparency of it and how transparent are people being. And if people don't know their AI, people are going to gravitate towards the AI one. It seems because they think it's more trustworthy.
But is that because they can be designed to be the most appealing version of whatever influencer they want to work with? Like in that sense, it's much less trustworthy because you've got a company inputting in, okay, I want an influencer who does this, who does this, who does this.
I
So of
think it's
course
that.
it's going to be the most appealing.
I think it's that, but I think it's all the social engineering things we've uncovered as well. Like going back to the Disney tropes, like people with specific face structures are more trustworthy than people. Like, what do they do in Disney movies? Like the people with the, I think it's narrow heads, and there's something to do with eye size, I think. But there's a bunch of like Disney villains look this way and Disney heroes look this way, and I think they're just engineering things to be like people with this head shape have more trust, or people with and
So we're going to create an AI influencer who looks like a Disney princess, essentially, and
maybe. I mean, I
everyone's
think we're
going
just
to
going
love
to
it.
create people that have like the most desirable features, and people are going to be like, I trust that person more.
That's so interesting. That's horrible as well. Like that's a different conversation entirely, but I don't want to like will that will then make everything more boring, more standardized, And that's a completely different conversation. We could get off on a massive tangent about that, but it's still a consideration. It's not good, arguably.
Yeah, there's a really, I think it's a Gia Tolentino essay, and from her book Trick Mirror. I think it's the one called Always Be Optimizing, where she sort of talks about how the rise of Instagram face and how all women started doing their makeup in this specific way. I don't think it's the trend anymore, but this sort of ambiguous ethnicity that
Yeah.
every woman was aiming for in their makeup over, this would have been like late 2010s, I think, which is a fascinating trend of like everyone's trying to look the same.
In it's like a similar vein, a lot of plastic surgeons were offering like the Kylie Jenner package, and it was the same set of fillers because everybody wanted to look like Kylie Jenner, basically.
Ooh,
So it was like jaw filler, chin, lips. I think that was it. I don't know if there was any other elements of it, but it's very similar. Like Instagram face, it's like everybody wanted to look the same. Everybody wanted to look like that.
yeah, that freaks me out. And then to go back to our earlier conversation, what happens when the standard is not even a real person?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's terrifying.
this is a grim episode.
This is
We haven't even got anything positive at the end to pull us out. It's just grimness. It's sadness all the way down. Uh, so the other thing is we've sort of talked around trust, but can you talk us through finding the right influencer and some of your experiences?
the so when I used to work in digital marketing, a huge part of a campaign would be the actual identification stage.
Mhm.
So I was lucky. I was at a great agency, and there was a very detailed framework for finding the right influencer for a client, and whether you believe it or not, there was a focus from client side and agency side on authenticity, or at least as much as you can possibly get in this kind of environment. And as I said before, the campaigns that worked, you could always kind of tell what was going to do well because of this framework that you went in with before. So it's like, do they have the right audience? Is there kind of like, do they do all loads of sponsored posts, or are they quite seemingly selective with it? Are they going to say no to something if it doesn't align with their kind of values, etc., etc.? If we put the power, if we put all of that in a company's hands, whether it's an in-house team, whether it's an agency, whatever, and we say, right, we need to find the perfect influencer, but you can just make one, then
Yeah.
it takes away, like, then what happens? Because I know we've discussed it before, but you can't trust anything because that is just an extension of that company. There's nothing authentic about it. There's no purpose to what you are doing in this influencer marketing campaign. You might as well just put an advert out. And I think eventually consumers will realize that, whether it takes a little time or not.
Yes. It becomes just another marketing channel. I have a question for you though, having been on the side of sourcing influencers and you've off camera shared with me some of the horror stories of interacting with influencers, which, if you want to, you can share here. Um, is there an appeal in you or part of you that understands why this is appealing to have an easy influencer or someone that will just do what you say versus dealing with some of the real life influencers out there?
I mean, yes, but I would say that is true of any industry. I'm sure that some of our account managers would say there's an appeal in just having AI write content instead of having to deal with you and me. You know what I mean? Like
I
you
get
can it if you're taking all of the friction out of an experience, it's always going to be easier, but it's not necessarily going to be better.
That's good. Cut that. Put that in the recording. You're right, and I think the other thing in that is often you think you're removing all the friction out of the experience, and really what you're doing is adding new frictions to
Yeah.
the experience. Um,
You're
it's
just
not as easy as
minimizing the amount of perspectives you get on it as well. It's all coming from you essentially, which fine, but
yeah. It's also not as easy as just putting in some words and getting some words out in AI, which I think a lot of people seem to think it is. Do you want to talk about how much you hate it?
Yeah. I do. I always want to talk about how much I hate it. Um, as a content writer, it doesn't help me as much because the reason that we want to use it is because, you know, you get kind of more ideas faster, and then you as the expert, as the content writer, can edit it down. I find it really tricky to save any time when I'm using AI, and partly because I'm a control freak, but partly I find it really difficult to get in the flow of editing work that I haven't written myself. And it's very different if you're kind of reviewing somebody's content and you're like, yeah, I'll have a quick go at this, but I'm not trying to turn it into my voice. When AI creates something for me to then switch it around and make it sound like it has come from me, I find really, really difficult. And by the time I've edited and edited and edited, I might as well have just drafted it myself and then edited my own work. So it doesn't benefit me in that way. But that being said, I do understand the plus side of it, especially when it comes to kind of getting ideas that you might not necessarily think of yourself. I do think it can help with creativity. I love using it for like quick administrative things, or like just quickly outline this for me, just quickly tell me a few top line facts about this, and then working from there. I see the value in it for that.
I completely agree with you, and that's part of our experimentation of working with writing. It's the volume of ideas that I think are useful, not necessarily the refinement of the content. So that final craft polish stage is still a necessary thing, which is nice, because we kind of want the personality of our writers to shine through. Uh, and also just adding opinions. Like the AI can't replicate opinions. It can do all the information and the research for us, but the actual, this is what I think about something, I think is still something we need people to do. The last one that I'm kind of interested in, and then we'll wrap up, is around this authenticity argument. And one of the things, especially in the AI world, that I keep hearing from people who are skeptical about it is that people want authenticity. And one of the things I'm sort of noticing is like, do they? And do they care? A good example would be the AI TikTok voice, where people, it's clearly AI.
Oh, that kind of like, yeah,
That
the
one voice that
computery over
yeah,
voiceover.
and no one cares. And it's on, I mean, I don't even have TikTok, and I've seen that voice 100 times. So is authenticity actually a big deal to people, and do people really care?
That's very interesting because as marketers, I think it's drummed into you so much that authenticity is the most important thing that you can possibly work towards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah,
maybe is it one of those situations, you know, every now and then you get an advert and all of the marketers talk about it on LinkedIn and they're like, this is an amazing advert, the copy is amazing, and then it's like an advert for marketers. Marketers are the only people who are going to think that this is a great advert. Like your average consumer just won't care
yeah,
because they're going
that's
into kind of the nuances, the different parts of why it's great and things that just people will not notice because it's a 60-second advert and they'll probably skip it.
that's exactly it. Like either they'll skip it or they'll watch it, and they just don't care about authenticity as much as we put
Yeah.
value in it. And I think a lot of people are standing on this hill of like AI is inauthentic and it can't replicate what people do. And I think there's a bigger question of just like, who cares? Doesn't matter.
I don't know. I think it largely depends on what kind of content we're talking about and what kind of audience we're talking about as well. Because I think the implications of inauthenticity are a lot. The stakes are a lot higher if we're talking about like, you know, we said before about the influencer and the body positivity. Like the stakes are a lot higher if we're talking about young girls seeing this ridiculous figure versus if we're selling a shampoo or something to like on a shelf among loads of other. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's not an emotional thing, if it's not kind of a wider issue in society, if it is just a quick product or a quick TikTok video, that then authenticity doesn't become as much of a problem.
Yeah.
But what's the criteria for that? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. I don't know. That's where we're going to leave it. I don't know.
I don't know either.
And that's this week on the Work Podcast on AI influences.